Homes with Cannons, Chapter 6, Waiting. Todd and Robert came riding home an hour before daylight. While their horses were carefully readied for a long and fast journey by their stern-faced father, the young men swiftly ate a huge breakfast of ham, eggs, and hominy grits. Meanwhile, Truth and her aunt packed their saddlebags with sandwiches, jackets, trousers, rainproof cloaks, and changes of underclothing. Little time was wasted on farewells. Robert had told his brother of the night's threatening visit by the Gibsons and their friends. They both knew the men would be back if he and Todd stayed. Todd said very little and spoke only once of his wife. "Lucy says I have to go. She'll come here to live with thee, Ma and Pa, any time they need her." "Her own mother needs her right now," said Elizabeth Bardwell firmly. "We shall see her as often as we can." Robert put in, "We can't write, but we will send messages. Thee knows how." Truth's uncle nodded. "Through our special railroad, the Buchans. Now, here's $50 for each of thee." Truth saw the bright coins shake into his palm from a leather sack. He divided them between his two sons. "Take our blessings and go. May God keep thee safe. Remember thy faith." The older Bardwells embraced their sons, and then Truth was swung up off her feet and caught up in a strong embrace, first by Todd, and then Robert. Robert whispered in her ear, "I was proud of thee last night. Keep up thy courage. I am glad thee has come. Thee will be a comfort here." "And I am proud of both of thee," she told him. Robert and Todd now mounted their horses. They lifted their hats and left at a fast trot. A moment later, Truth heard the thud of hooves on the road that led north. She looked at her aunt and uncle. Their faces were gray and tense in the pale dawning. Her Uncle Matthew said, "I must ride out and tell members of our faith what has gone on here. There are other young men who should leave us now." He went toward the barn. Elizabeth Bardwell turned away from watching the empty road and told Truth, "They need not go to school today. Thee and I will take up the rag carpets and beat them. Then we shall make whitewash for the walls and ceilings. It's best to be busy. Work takes the thoughts from trouble. Has thee ever made whitewash?" "No." "It's made with lime, flour, laundry bleach, and boiling water. Go upstairs and put on thy oldest clothing." Truth, her aunt, and her uncle went to the first day meeting as usual the next week. There, Truth Hopkins had another shock. Everything went as always until a tall young Quaker suddenly stood up, cleared his throat, and said, "I find it in my heart to speak to thee." Truth gasped and stared at him along with everyone else but his parents, who sat slumped forward. He could not have been any older than Todd. He was by far the youngest person she had ever heard speak out at a meeting. He was silent for a long moment, and then he said in a harsh, husky voice, "I cannot find it in my soul to fight for the South and slavery. Nor can I find it there to go to Canada. Yes, I will go north, but I'll go to offer myself to the Army of the Union in Maryland or Pennsylvania. I will serve the North as a soldier." He didn't wait to hear what might be said. He walked stiffly, awkwardly, out of the meeting house with his parents following him. Truth's eyes watched them through the window until she felt her aunt's arm on her sleeve. It was then that she remembered having heard that not all Quakers refused to fight. Now the waiting began, waiting to hear from Todd or Robert. No news came either by way of other Quakers who traveled about more, or by the Underground Railroad that could send letters as well as human beings. June came, bringing warm days and no school. Matthew Bardwell cultivated his corn, weeding the fields with the help of his farm machinery. After he finished with that, he went on to cut logs for a new corn crib and to arrange with other Quakers to help him harvest the oat crop in late summer. Truth and her aunt began to can pickles from garden cucumbers and pick wild berries to make jams and jellies. With her cousins gone, Truth did their chores as well as her own. "Thee is a great help and comfort to us, Truth," her aunt told her often. Then she would sigh and look out the nearest window, letting Truth know that she longed to see her sons come riding home. But Elizabeth Bardwell knew as well as everyone else did that they would not. The war was not going away as everyone had hoped. More and more of the Bardwells' non-Quaker neighbors left home to join the Confederate forces. The Bardwells' acquaintances were now aware that their two sons had left. They guessed at their destination. Sometimes riders passing in the night would shout, "Cowards!" and "Canada!" and throw stones to rattle on the roof, but in general they kept their distance. Truth and her aunt stayed away from Goldsboro, where Quakers were spat at on the street and were shoved by passerby. Some merchants refused to sell Matthew Bardwell any goods. On the 2nd day of July, news came to the Bardwells that left them white-faced with horror. An old Quaker traveling from Virginia arrived at the farm with Martha Buchan's tall, gaunt father. The two men spoke in the road with Matthew Bardwell and then came in the house. From the grim expression on her uncle's face, Truth could tell the ranger brought evil news. Matthew Bardwell said Robert and Todd were caught in northern Virginia. Truth ran to her aunt's embrace, crying, "Oh, no!" "Friend Buchan, tell us," asked Elizabeth Bardwell softly. The Quaker motioned to the old man next to him. "Friend Hall will tell thee. He saw it happen." The man's round pink face was sympathetic, but his words were dreadful. "I live near Winchester, on a high road. A few weeks ago I was repairing my fence when 2 young men, thy sons, stopped to ask me the way. While we were talking, Virginia cavalrymen in gray uniforms came out of the woods on the other side of the road. There were at least 20 of them." He spread his hands in a gesture of helplessness. "Thy sons were taken. I heard the captain say they would be forced into the Confederate Army no matter what state they came from. He said, 'Quakers can make good cannon fodder. That's about all they're good for.' And then he laughed. They took thy lads away. Before they left, one of them told me his name and where they lived, and asked me to let thee know. My wife was ill, but she's better now. I came as soon as I could." "We thank thee, friend Hall," said Truth's aunt sadly. "Would thee and friend Buchan take supper with us?" "Thank thee, yes, but that is not all, Sister Bardwell," added William Buchan. "Unfortunately, thee must know the rest. I have heard that there's to be a battle soon. It is said it will be in northern Virginia." Aunt Elizabeth put her hands to her mouth and stifled a moan as Truth cried, "Will Todd and Robert be in it?" The old man nodded. "It could be that they will take part. Only God knows that." On the 21st of July, the Union and Confederate armies met near Manassas Junction in Virginia, not far from Washington, D.C. What the North had expected to be an easy victory turned into a shameful rout. Foolish, overconfident picnickers from Washington had come out to watch what they considered to be a show, but they hastily turned their buggies and wagons around and sped to safety. News of the battle reached the Bardwells in North Carolina 2 weeks later. Men and women spoke of it with horror at the first day meeting, and Truth knew by the look on her aunts' and uncles' faces what they were thinking and fearing. Truth went to bed early with her muscles aching from a long day spent stirring laundry boiling in a great pot on a hot mid-August day. Smoke from shifting winds had made her eyes burn, and she wanted to rub them even though her aunt warned her not to. She was still awake, trying not to put her fist to her eyes, when she heard the rumble of wagon wheels outside and a muffled whoa. Another slave for the Underground Railroad? She wondered. None had come for a while. This time was different, though. Truth heard her aunt's quick footsteps on the stairs, and a minute later she was in her little room. Aunt Elizabeth's words came out in a furious rush. "Truth, Truth! It's Todd! He's come home! Come downstairs quickly. We need thy help. He has escaped from the Confederates, but he's hurt. He has a bullet in his leg. He was in that battle. We must hide him." As Truth scrambled out of bed and put on her brown calico wrapper, she asked, "How did he get here?" "From Station 7 with friend Buchan. He was sent along south from Station 8 in Virginia."